Welcome to The World Today. I'm Sana Maqbool, and in today's show, we will be talking about Prime Minister Imran Khan's visit to the USA. We will see what came out of this visit and what are the achievements that Pakistan has achieved in this particular visit, particularly with regards to the situation in Kashmir and how well the situation in Kashmir was highlighted. We'll also take a look at the UN General Assembly's speech by the Prime Minister and the overall reaction of the Pakistani nation upon his return. We would also be talking about the LOC violations by India yet again, in which 2 people have been killed and 3 have been injured. Of course, this has been highly condemned once again by Pakistan, and of course the ISPR also in a statement has said that the Pakistani troops responded timely and in a befitting manner. But we'll talk more about how long can these LOC violations keep on continuing, especially with regards to how the situation is prevailing between the 2 countries. We will also be taking a look at the end at the elections in Afghanistan, which were marred by violence and a low turnout, and we'll see what implication that holds for the actual results that will come out from these elections, and how are they going to influence the US deal if it ever continues. To talk more about this, we have been joined in the studio by our guests. We have first with us senior analyst retired Kramula Bhattisa. Thank you very much for being with us, sir. And in the studios, we've also been joined by another analyst who is Ms. Asma Wadu. Thank you for being with us today. To talk more about, of course, the situation, firstly with regards to Kashmir and how well the Prime Minister has been received at the international front. If we look back at the entire visit and on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly session as well, how successful do you think it has been, and what would you highlight as the major achievements from the visit?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Pakistan has been suffering for the last couple of decades, in which it has not been able to share with the world, apprise the world, make it understand the plight of the Kashmiris, the Kashmir cause, and how the Kashmiri freedom fighters got turned into terrorists. And this narrative change Pakistan could not counter, and we also saw that the international media was not covering or not giving due coverage to the Kashmir cause, and of course it was not being seen and heard in the world capitals. And this was a fantastic opportunity for Pakistan. Firstly, the UN General Assembly session, and before that the 5th August action by the Indian government, wherein they abrogated Article 370 and 35A. So that is when the world started to pay attention as to what is going on in this part of the world. And while Pakistan started a campaign both at the diplomatic, political, at the media level, and visiting several countries, meeting several heads of the states, and at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs level. So the ground was gradually being prepared for this eventual event of the UN General Assembly session, and the opportunity that it provided for the Prime Minister of Pakistan to meet on the sidelines with several other leaders, institutions, think tanks in New York. And I think we have been able to project the Kashmir issue very effectively at that level, and the world has once again awakened to this serious issue, which is awaiting a solution for the last 72 years. And we've seen that the world has responded well in terms of its media coverage by international newspapers, TV channels, and even their think tanks. So I think it has been a very successful visit by the Prime Minister, both his speech at the UNGA as well as his meeting on the sidelines with different entities. And we have seen that he has been received very well yesterday when he arrived back from his visit. The entire nation has appreciated this speech, and especially the 4 points that he covered in his speech, all speaking from the core of his heart, and the issues which not only face Pakistan, but in fact all the Muslim countries and also all the third world countries, especially when you talk of money laundering and flight of capital and safe haven for the capital in the Western countries. So I think it has been on the whole a very successful visit from Pakistan's perspective, and from the perspective of the Muslim countries.
Okay, the Prime Minister before leaving for the US said that he's going to be going there as an ambassador for the Kashmiris, and that is his main agenda and the reason for actually going to the UN General Assembly to highlight the issue of Kashmir. And he's done that on so many levels over there, but a lot was also expected of the US President Donald Trump in terms of his prior statements to the UN General Assembly of how he wants to play a major role in the resolution of this conflict. In terms of that, do you think that any tangible positive direction has been achieved? Because his offer of mediation seems a bit shaky still.
Actually, Anna, if you think it in that manner, the UNGA address and the whole trip, 7-day trip, was very rewarding on different angles. But as far as US role in the whole situation and how effective they're going to be in the future, that depends a lot on how we amplify our strategic position. The more we amplify our strategic position at this moment, because America's dependency on Pakistan has increased in recent past. They need an Afghanistan solution, and President Trump needed before the election that it was going to be a golden star in his performance chart when he goes to election in the coming year. With that, they don't want to get into another war. Their political scenario, their internal dynamics, their perspective, global perspective, that don't allow them to head into another war with Iran. They need our support and to a certain level to mediate or pacify that front as well. So our strategic position is strong. We are economically less than India. That is, there is no second opinion about that. But we are more strategically significant in the region. Now, if America gonna put any have any effective role in the whole situation, that depends on how we amplify or enhance our strategic position in this region. So a lot will depend, and a lot needs to be done in that perspective.
Right.
The trip was successful. The speech was a bravo, golden star of the whole trip. But to get to the next step, we need to plan and implement it. How we're going to enhance, how we're going to reinforce our strategic role and significance in the region at the moment that we have. That will determine US role.
Right. So in order to, of course, enhance our strategic position, a good opportunity that we've talked about earlier is the fact that the US has asked for help in terms of the situation with Iran, and Saudi Arabia has also pointed towards that. And if possible, and if Pakistan is able to play a significant role in this regard, that is going to have an effect on our strategic position. But considering Iran's leadership, how far do you think Pakistan has the capacity to actually play an important role in this conflict?
Well, Pakistan and Iran are neighbors. We have had historic relations, and beside geographical proximity, of course, we have several other commonalities. While the relationship between the two countries has not been very warm in the recent past, at least last over 2 decades or so, but the fact remains that we are neighbors, and we would like to have peace in the region, and I'm sure both the countries are equally concerned about it. They both long for it. And now that we see that there is increased tension between Iran and USA, and when there is an opportunity both from the Saudi Arabian leadership as well as from the US, that Pakistan gets into a position of mediating in the region, bringing about some sort of a settlement or an understanding between Saudi Arabia and Iran. I think Pakistan, because of its relationship with both the countries, is certainly in a position to bring about some sort of a mediated agreement or a solution or a settlement, and eventually peace in the region. And it's now up to Pakistan how it leverages its position vis-a-vis these two countries being in the region, and how well can we satisfy the apprehensions of the two sides so that they are both willing to understand each other and get to live with each other within the region. So I think we are in a position and all the major players are interested. The Americans are interested, the Iranians are interested, the Saudis are interested. So while Pakistan has this opportunity to play its role and come out as an important country, not at the region level but at the world level, I think it also has an opportunity to leverage its position vis-a-vis the US, not only in this region but also vis-a-vis Afghanistan, and of course secure some sort of support from the Americans, wherein the Americans could play a decisive role in resolving the issue of Kashmir and bringing about peace between these two South Asian countries as well. So I think Pakistan is in an excellent position strategically, where it enjoys that status wherein it has the opportunity of leveraging its position in bringing about some sort of support from the US, which I think today is the only world leader, even other than China or Russia, who is definitely in a position to push its weight or nudge India into coming to a settlement with Pakistan over Kashmir and granting Kashmiris the right of self-determination, which Mr. Nehru had promised several times, even in writing, and which the UN Security Council has also asked for several times. So it is nothing out of the way. It is nothing extraordinary. It is something which is absolutely legal, accepted, acknowledged, and
right, the decision has always been there. It just needs to be carried out. But the Prime Minister throughout his visit has also expressed his disappointment over the international community's response, or pointed towards the fact that the United Nations is made for actually working and implementing towards its resolutions and to prevent any major wars or conflicts and to give people the rights that it guarantees by international law. Before coming back to Pakistan, he's also had a meeting with the UN chief who has said that he's going to remain engaged and that his offer stands. But in terms of what that actually means towards working towards a resolution, because his offer of mediation then again also relies on good offices and both parties involved. So in terms of any tangible expectation from the UN, what has really come out from the UN after the UN General Assembly session?
Actually, I have a very different opinion on that.
Okay.
You can wake the conscience of people where the conscience is sleeping. Where the conscience is dead, you can't wake them up. The Prime Minister gave a very potent example here of 1937. Almost similar thing happened when Churchill was saying it again and again, reinforcing again and again to restrain Hitler and to take action then, which was neglected. Again, the dead conscience resulted in a world war. Now, in my opinion, what Pakistan should be very clear and vocal, which Imran Khan Sahib did in this UNGA speech, that you tell them what the world is putting at stake by being quiet, by not taking action. Their stake, highlighted to them. Like, okay, it is a big market, okay, India is attracting investment, okay, it is the apple of the eye at the moment, but that don't give India a license to take all of the investment and like a Pied Piper take hold of the investment to war and generate a war economy around it. It cannot be. They cannot let it.
But unless
happen.
the economic relations of of India with other countries are strained, that's going to continue to happen,
no,
isn't it?
But we should be clear that if they instigate a war economy, they are the one who will start it. But there is no certainty that they will be able to stop it. And if they are not able to stop it, like Khan Sahib concluded, nobody knows where it's going to lead and where it's going to end. And if you don't know where it's going to end, what will happen to the investment? It will be like dragging it to India will be dragging it to the fire can. So this is what the world needs to understand, and how vocal and how clear and how loud we are about it, that will determine their interest in the whole situation.
Right. Of course, another important aspect of this is that the United Nations General Assembly session was something that was expected by the Prime Minister to highlight this issue since the 5th of August when this new momentum has started. And it was all moving towards that. But now that it's over, what do you think is the next step to keep the world community engaged in the Kashmir conflict? Because it may just die down since the UN General Assembly session is over, all the countries are back, and maybe Kashmir is not going to take the center stage anymore. Is that so? For what Pakistan needs to do for that, to prevent that to happen?
Well, you see, we need to keep, first of all, our end result in view. And end result is the grant of right of self-determination to the Kashmiris. That is the end result that must remain at the top of the agenda and always in view. Now, how do we reach over there? Now, first of all, of course, as the Prime Minister said, we must make all efforts for the end of the curfew. Then we must, of course, ensure that world media be allowed, World Aid Organization be allowed to go into Indian-held Kashmir and provide immediate support and relief to the Kashmiris who have been locked up for the last 56 days. And thereafter, the interest that has been generated in the world, that not only must be sustained but enhanced. And because I think while the Americans have been showing their willingness to mediate between the two countries, they are so far not willing to intervene. Because the Indians, while at the outset, President Trump had said that Mr. Modi has asked him to, mediate, but then the Indians refused, denied it, and the American president did not press on it. So I think that is now something which is foregone, and now we'll have to look forward to another proposal or a request or an indication by the Indians that they are willing to have the Americans as a mediator. But the fact is that mediator has to be an honest, impartial and neutral. And it is now clearly visible that Mr. Trump is inclined towards India. So I wonder whether the Americans can be taken as an honest, sincere, impartial, neutral broker or a mediator. So that leaves the United Nations only.
But in that sense, even the United Nations cannot be really expected to be an objective body because it's governed by the world powers.
True. But the fact is, while the American president has clearly indicated on several occasions that he is inclined towards India, UN is yet to do that.
Okay, sure.
So if we rule out even UN, then there's nothing left. Because China is in no position, because that is clearly siding with Pakistan. Russia is in no position, clearly siding with India. America is well, somewhere in between, but visibly inclined towards India. So that leaves only the UN. Or at the end of the day, we have global world opinion, which I think, while conscience may be sleeping or maybe half dead, but in the information age today, when there is access available or immediate access available to anybody and everybody to reach out to the entire world. And like, for example, the speech of the Prime Minister of Pakistan was seen nearly 500,000 times on the YouTube. So you can imagine the kind of access is now available, the outreach that is available. So even a dead conscience can be woken up. So I think that is something that Pakistan's diplomats, Pakistan's politicians, Pakistan's think tanks, academia, media, they all must continue this onslaught, this campaign, wherein they need to continue to keep the interest of the world alive, and start with this, that first of all the curfew must end. Secondly, the media must be allowed to go in Kashmir. Then there should be a wide coverage given to whatever they find over there, and thereafter the pressure must build up on implementation of the UN Security Council resolutions, i.e. grant of right of self-determination to the Kashmiris.
Okay, so ma'am, do you think that the fact that at least the world opinion is changing, or that the world is actually talking about the Kashmir issue more than it did in the past, Does that mean that perhaps the momentum since the 5th of August that Pakistan has tried to create and has tried to highlight in the US visit also is somehow creating some waves throughout the world community in terms of the international public opinion?
Yes, yes, it is. And if we, there's an interesting dimension that we are missing in the Prime Minister's speech as well. Have you noticed that the structure of the speech? Initially, he took attention of the Muslims in general, touched their heart, touched their problem, Islamophobia, Huzur Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam's respect and his dignity and his place in our hearts.
Climate change.
Climate change. He took attention of the people, grabbed the attention, and then he gave almost 29 minutes to Kashmir. Like people were focused. Initially when people started listening to him, especially Muslims and generally all the audience, he grabbed their attention, gained their trust, and then he presented the case. Obviously, if the leaders have their own focused targets, there are people in these countries who are really now thinking that now what is happening here? It should not happen. This guy is talking about something that we believe as well, that we feel as well. Now this is presenting this case, maybe it has some credibility, some value. So it has created waves, it has created awareness, it has created, he provoked thinking in people's mind. But now when it has attained momentum and it has been entered a next level, it requires strategic planning. It should keep on going like that. Unless it keeps on going like that, it can burst like a bubble, and that will not be something that Pakistan or Kashmir people need. So it needs a momentum, it needs a focus, it needs to be paced in the same way. Next level, then jump up to the next level, jump up